Hey, sister, this is Misty Williams, founder of HealingRosie.com, and I'm so excited to welcome you to Rosie Radio. Tune in to find clarity, direction, and hope for your healing. New episodes drop every Tuesday. We created this show to empower you to regain control of your life and feel like yourself again. Yes, sister, it is possible. All right, you guys, I'm super excited for this interview today with my friend Barton Scott. Many of you have heard me sharing about some of the great breakthroughs I've been experiencing in my own healing journey over the last year. We uncovered mold toxicity last year, and I've been detoxing. I was really excited this year to do a 21-day cleanse and actually finally have my body releasing weight. And right around the time that I was doing this cleanse, I remember having a conversation with Barton where we were talking about minerals and how important they are for basically every function in the body. All of our conversion pathways are affected by our mineral levels. And he, in passing, just talked about how it affected our hormones, which, you know, if you've been around the Healing Rosie community for any length of time, you know how much we value optimal hormone functioning. And of course, it's something that I logically know. Like I logically know that our hormones are affected by minerals. People talk about it, but there's a lot of conversations happening in our space about the importance of magnesium and potassium. And I actually was taking 3 forms of magnesium to make sure that I was getting the magnesium that my body needed. I was also using a magnesium spray topically. So as he was talking about this, I felt really intrigued. And he told me he wanted me to go do one of his mineral tests. So I did a mineral test and found out some shocking things that we are going to talk about today. And here's what I want you to know. This is the why should you listen to this interview? I am feeling really, really amazing as I've been doing this optimization. I was really struggling because of all the detoxing that I'm doing, detoxing this mold. It's really affected my brain function. I was struggling to concentrate. My adrenals have been shot for a long time. And the minerals have been massively helping. I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, there was times that I would pin my recall like that, just the ability to kind of connect your thoughts together. With 10 being you have dementia and 1 being you're sharp as a whip and totally fine. There's times that I would put myself at like a 6 or 7, right? I'm like on the road to dementia. Not really, but you know. But since I've been taking the minerals, I would say that I'm down to like a 3, 2. Like I hardly ever have the issues that I was having previously. I've been supporting my adrenals in a different way. We're going to talk about that a little bit during this interview today. And my ability to concentrate and focus is massively improved. I can go from task to task to task easily and always have. I think it's just like wired into my nervous system to be an amazing multitasker. But when I need to sit down and really focus on something, I've got about 30 minutes in me. And it's been really challenging, right? So when I can sit down now and work on something for 3 or 4 hours, I feel like a new woman. So we are going to dive into minerals. We're going to look at my hair mineral analysis, hair tissue, mineral tissue, whatever the order of the words is, test today with Barton. I want you to understand the power of this test. It's so important that we're optimizing our minerals. And we're going to talk about why during this interview. And what I want is for all of you to, first of all, be aware that optimizing minerals is hugely, hugely important. And it's not enough just to be taking minerals. I really think that the secret sauce is the testing, because you'll see what your body's actually absorbing, right? And where you're at. And you can make some great adjustments. And I want you to just understand the power of what this test can show you. I love it that Barton also has his own story with this. I wanted to share a little bit about that as we kick off this conversation, because he is a fan of testing. He's going to tell you about his background. He did all the tests. He thought all the tests. And when he was in his 20s and his symptoms weren't improving. And this was kind of a Hail Mary last resort test to do this hair tissue mineral analysis. And it gave him the information that he needed to get his life back. So I think this is a piece that's very, very often missed. I've worked with a lot of doctors and practitioners. I have a lot of wonderful colleagues in our space who have taught me a lot. I've been really empowered by their knowledge and expertise. I've heard maybe one other person talk about this test. I think it is probably one of the core tests that we should all be doing early on, because optimal mineral levels drives everything in the body. And I want Barton to talk about that too. So as an athlete, Barton Scott struggled for years with debilitating brain fog and fatigue. His breakthrough came when he uncovered the important role minerals play in virtually every major biochemical process in the body, and he resolved his own deficiencies. As a biochemist, nutritionist, and researcher, Barton is the founder and process developer behind Upgraded Formulas, and you can learn more about Upgraded Formulas at their website, upgradedformulas.com. Welcome, Barton.
Thank you, Misty. It is great to be here, and some of that I hadn't heard yet. It's been a while since we caught up, so that is so good to hear.
Yeah,
wow.
It's awesome to experience.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you. So why don't we kick this off here? I want you to tell people just a little bit about your story. There's so much to cover. Let's leave out some of it. Let's give the 1 minute version of what happened, because I think the context is really powerful. And I want people to understand the significance of doing this kind of testing and really getting your minerals dialed in.
I thought I was losing my mind, and I was used to having really sharp brain function. I was doing chemical engineering because my brain worked well. I think it's the toughest 4-year degree, really probably the toughest degree out there in some cases. Like if you struggle with math, it literally is way, way easier to be a doctor than to go through chemical engineering, because you have to get a minor in math before you even start your chemical engineering courses. You have to get virtually a minor in chemistry before you even start, like organic chemistry, all of this. You have to do a lot of calculus-based physics before they even kind of give you the keys to the car, so to speak, and allow you to take some of these courses. And then you actually have to remember all of that stuff. It is incredibly demanding, and it was like an Olympic sport, it seemed like. And I wanted to do that because I knew I would never be intimidated to learn anything ever again. And when it came to seeing a hair analysis, so we'll skip forward, you already touched on some of that for people, and I'll try to make this super actionable, is I came from a place of I know my brain isn't working really well right now, but it has, and I have to be able to get it back. And it should be reversible in my mind. I know no one's told me that, and I have no reason, based on that, to believe that. However, I also understand some key rules of physics and chemistry at this point, and know that, well, you most likely there was some degradation of something, in the same way that you run a race and you get more tired at the end. And then if you recover and you charge back up somehow, mysteriously, you feel fine, you can run the race again. So, how do we get back? When someone develops disease, they've been unaware of the problems, the symptoms for a long time. And what I've learned is that through way back 12 years ago, when I did that first hair analysis on myself, my mom, my girlfriend at the time, her dad, I realized, because I was born to older parents, they had, 2 daughters and then big gap and had me, that, totally on purpose. I don't think so. Regardless, because I was born to my parents in their 40s, I knew that I started thinking about longevity for them, for me, early on, really, really early on, because I was just aware of the sentence we all have, and knowing that I wanted to just I guess I had incentive, is what I'm trying to say, in helping her. And I helped her slim down. She was never really overweight, but I helped her slim down, and things were improving. And we were doing tests, and we were seeing that supplements were not absorbing for all 4 of us, including her. And she was on medication, and then that was leading to surgery and then more medication. And as I heard Dr. John Gray say, there's a unique type of pain when you really love someone and you feel powerless to help them. Well, everyone, no one can help them, including you, is how I would say it. And that's where I was. So the motivating force behind that was, it was me, but it was also largely her too, because we were really close as a family. And, I learned so much from her. And I, just on a global perspective, we have so many problems we have to solve, from the soil not having enough nutrients and all sorts of things. We literally have to solve that problem. And if we don't have the nutrients in the short term, we can't have the brain function like you're talking about to solve those problems. Our cognitive ability declines to an extreme point. 20-point lower IQs whenever the brain is developing and doesn't have iodine, early on in life, but also throughout life. You just don't have that. You're not as intelligent as you could be if you're really depleted, for sure. It's just the brain is like you can think of it as a combustion engine or a battery, and it needs these elements, right? So I realized, just thinking in this, very ground up, deep, like really applying a deep lens from chemical engineering to nutrition, and getting beyond the conjecture and people's opinions, which were incredibly boring to me, and going like, so many people are just repeating what other people are saying. And I've read 3 books and they said 70% of the same stuff. And this is a waste of time. So I really started to think for myself after reading, I did a lot of reading through those years. And what I really found was that because it's an elemental world, we have to understand this periodic table that a lot of us got pretty scared by in like 9th grade chemistry onward, and really understand that is the building block of everything on this planet, including you and I. And knowing that, going, all right, well, we need to absorb the nutrients. So what I did was I came up with a way to get the nutrients into the cell, which you can feel the difference. And we have a sleep study with 200 doctors right now for our magnesium product, Upgrade Magnesium, which has shown so far incredible results. And I'm really happy for that to come out soon. But the thing that I realized was around particle size. If you got it small enough, and another key part was getting it stable and getting it to remain stable, so that when you look at the shelf life of one of these products, I have some around here. It's our electrolyte product, for example, Charge. With this product or any of our products, the shelf life is 2 to 3 years. So it's, being able to have the particles like essentially ready to act, and also have them be shelf stable for a long time. These were things that were, certainly challenges to figure out. But, I came from an entrepreneurial family, and, I figured that side, I could solve those problems. And I just knew that everyone would need this, because I needed it at 22 to 24 desperately. And then I knew I'd continue needing it, because we're all very, like our lives are dictated by how much energy we have. Like you talked about, getting in the zone and only doing 30 minutes maybe versus 3 hours is a totally different life.
Difference.
Like 10 years from now, like you are, president of the United States versus like just getting by type stuff. Like, I mean, it is that big of a difference, because the trajectory over time is just massive. So that's, I got really clear on that early in life from sports and understanding, especially in wrestling. I could eat this, I could eat that. I would have this much energy. I could sprint. I really intuitively had those loops in my body, the feedback loops built in. And I think that was one of the more important things, besides, discipline and mindset, that you learn from tough sports like wrestling. And I just knew that this would be super important. So it's like you said, it's important for hormones too. It's important for every aspect of health. Really, it's the building block for everything. So that's why
You said something during the interview that we did for the Radical Healing Detox for Stress and Stressors Masterclass. We were talking about hormones and detoxification, and you said, if you want to detox properly, you have to optimize your minerals. It should be the first thing that you do. And I'm hearing this after I've been detoxing for 6 or 8 months, right? Obviously, I was still, my body was definitely detoxing, but I can feel such a difference after 90 days in how I'm functioning overall. I actually feel like I don't need quite as much sleep too. Although I get great sleep, but I'm just seeing that I don't need quite as much sleep. This is a foundational piece for all of us. So talk to us a little bit about the symptoms we might be experiencing that could have mineral deficiency as one of their root causes.
So I was actually able to, and let's see if this will cooperate. Can you see my screen right now?
I see the top of, there it is.
Okay. So let's take a look at this. So these are just some of the symptoms that are associated with really just what could nicely fit on a slide, because I have 10 slides like this.
Sure.
Essentially, any problem you're struggling with could be on this list, and we could talk about why. Can you see this okay, Misty?
Yeah, I can. Yeah. So for those that are listening and not watching, I'm going to read what's on this slide really quick. Symptoms associated with mineral deficiency: poor sleep, lack of energy, feeling nauseous, tingling in hands and feet, irregular heartbeat, mood shifts, high blood pressure, brittle nails, feeling confused or spacey, flabby or loose skin, cold hands and feet, poor thyroid function, hair thinning, bone fractures, impaired vision, headaches, We are going to have this slide also in the show notes. So if you go to healingrosie.com, if you want to see this slide, we're going to have in the show notes as well, if you're listening right now and not watching the screen. But yeah, lots of symptoms associated with mineral deficiency.
So many.
So we think, cold hands and feet, I need here's what I've experienced. All right. So I'm propped up majorly. My whole endocrine system needs a lot of help. So I'm supporting my adrenals. I'm supporting my thyroid. I'm supporting all my sex hormones. Right. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I've observed and that I'm really excited to keep measuring and seeing improvements on is my body doesn't seem to convert one hormone into another very well. Right. So that's why I have to provide so much support, because I'm not converting, or everything is just shunting to cortisol for me. That could be a big part of my problem too. But my conversion isn't happening like it should. And one of the things that we've talked about is how important your mineral levels are to those conversion pathways. So as we think about, I'm a big fan of bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, of supporting our thyroid with desiccated thyroid or Cytomel, some kind of T3 only support. And especially in the short term, like I can tell you as a woman that getting that support for my thyroid and hormones made a big difference quick in my quality of life. But long term, like I want to get my life and my energy and everything as optimal as I can, right? Long term, we're looking for healing. And a big part of what we need is to optimize the conditions that surround that whole hormone conversion, all those pathways, so that our hormones are more optimal.
Yeah, certainly. So, B6 is one. When we look at the methylation pathway, which is, really important, and one of the things that you're talking about here is that, and that's, I see so many people struggle with methylation, my genetics included. So for me and for so many people, and you might be one of these people too, I would say something like 90% of the audience has some issue with this. Whether they do or don't, though, for example, B6 is really important. It's the cofactor when we look at the methylation pathway that is used the most. So your magnesium can be absorbed, and then you could run into this place where, in looking at your test results, which we'll do in a second, we see that your magnesium level shows high, and the reason it's showing high there is a B6 deficiency. We need, the body's having it, and it's like, well, we've absorbed it because you've taken enough to actually get it in your system, or you've used upgraded magnesium, which you actually see levels move when you're using our products, which is a whole idea that I realized, right? It was like, taking other supplements, trying a bunch of different forms, all this stuff didn't work. So I wanted to create a whole different process so that the form that we use for us doesn't matter. People don't have to memorize it, because every cell in the body can utilize it without digestion. So B6 is the most important cofactor for the methylation pathway. It's the one that's used the most, right? So you need to be supplementing that daily. B12 probably wouldn't help or wouldn't hurt either. But yeah, that's one example. There's many, but certainly minerals help so much. And years ago, this was a real light bulb moment in terms of what you talked about with detox, which is you cannot detox properly because without minerals, and you also aren't protected. It's like driving around without your seatbelt, or however you want to think about it. Whenever you have these gaping holes in your mineral status, because heavy metals just electrostatically come into the body and stay, because there's like, picture a river flowing, right? So if you close your eyes, picture a river flowing. Now, what happens when that river slows down to the sediment that's in the river? It drops out, right? Of solution, falls down, and then you get like, a really, a buildup, right? So that's what's happening in the body. And what you said about adrenals being low for a long, long time, when our potassium is really low, our heavy metals do not get moved. So if our potassium is really low and we're doing all the detox stuff, we don't have enough energy in the system. Electrolytes are electricity, really, and our bodies are really like batteries. So when we don't have enough electricity, you might see, from one hair to another, it can typically be a good thing that your heavy metals increase, which is sort of counterintuitive until you understand more about the hair testing, which is when your body is in a safer place, it's going to, and you've been living in your body for decades, as we all have, then, you start to work on it for 3 weeks and you're like, yeah, making progress, but every now and then you might have some brain fog. Like your average day will be much better, but your body starts feeling safe and healthier and releasing stuff. And you need potassium. You need your adrenals to be strong because, for example, if you're having a bowel movement, if you're going to the bathroom, if you're, getting ready for a workout, all these things require our adrenals to be active.
Yeah. So if once we start seeing in a hair mineral analysis test more metals, it says that your body's actually able to move them. So that's really powerful. A lot of us are, in my case, you guys probably have heard me talk about gaining 45 pounds in 3 months. It was totally a mystery. Like, what is happening? I was doing all the things and connected the dots 5 years later that I had mercury fillings improperly drilled from my mouth. So immediately my whole system was shut down and nothing was moving. I remember doing a Genova Complete Hormone panel at the time, which is very similar to the Dutch. And I showed my methylation was like nothing, flatlined. I wasn't methylating at all. My whole system is shut down. So, in a situation like that, your body can't move anything. I'm not excreting it. It's basically clogged. The system is clogged. Everything's going into my fat. I'm storing it all. So seeing things move is really important. It's an important part of the detox journey, right? We want to get that stuff out of our system. And in order to do that, we've got to create the conditions where the body feels like I have what I need to move this stuff out.
That is so key what you said about fat loss or storage and how it relates to fat loss too, right? So, your body, like I said, well, I'll just say it straight away, which is fat loss is going to be a lot harder for someone that has mineral deficiencies and has had for a while. Because why? Well, the body doesn't feel safe getting rid of the fat because it has to also detox these elements that are heavy metals. I mean, they are the most toxic things on the planet when we're talking about things like mercury. And, I know in the news, you'll hear things like plastic and, all sorts of things like that. But those are important. And you want to be, it's so easy to avoid for the most part, like filter your water at home, like use we could talk about water later too. But the real issue is, like you said, you said it perfectly, like storing it when you don't have the elements that you need, your body just stores it away in the fat. And then you're like, hey, wait a minute. I want to get rid of this stubborn belly fat. Well, why is it stubborn? Well, it's because it's likely, fat is our storage place for toxins, right? And it's you go, well, that, I hate that that's that way, but the body is just.
Body is saving your life.
It's saving your life, literally. It's keeping your organs from shutting down, because that huge toxic load, if it were to hit kidneys or liver, could be, very, very bad. So
yeah, I really want to drive this home for the ladies out there who, like me, have struggled with weight loss resistance. If your body is not letting go, you've got to figure out what your upstream stressors are. It's not a matter of, I need to figure out a different diet. If you do that 21-day cleanse that I've been talking about recently, and your body doesn't let go, you've got some toxic upstream stressors that you've got to figure out how to eradicate. And you need to start giving your body what it needs to be able to detoxify. And minerals are a huge, huge piece of that. So it's really hard, especially as women. I'm sure men deal with it too at some level, but as women, when we can't get our bodies to let go of inflammation and fat, and we're doing all the things. There was times that I was eating less than 1,000 calories a day, not letting a carb touch my lips, trying so hard to control that number on the scale, and nothing. It was so disempowering. I still have scale trauma that I'm working through. I don't like to get on the scale and even look at it, because I have so many experiences of getting on the scale and it moves up, 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 up. And I'm doing all the things I know to do, right? What do they teach us growing up as women? That if we want to get the weight off, we need to diet and exercise, right? So it's ingrained in us. We think the reason why this is happening to me is because of my diet. I need to exercise more. Women get so obsessive with exercising. Well, what happens to a lot of us when you start dealing with methylation issues and a high toxic load, all that extra exercise actually makes it worse. It makes everything worse, because now your really taxed adrenals that aren't functioning well are getting depleted even more. In that whole system, you need adrenal function to detoxify, right? So you're actually making your situation worse by, all the chronic cardio. So I just really want to highlight this for women, because if you found yourself in a situation where you just can't get anything to work, I've cried the tears. I've been there. I know what it's like, and it's not your fault. And your body also isn't broken, right? You just need to figure out what your body needs and give it the support it needs so that it can start letting go and releasing that weight.
I totally agree with that. The thought, though, that I want to add to is when we're talking about weight loss, we really have to get healthy to lose the weight, not lose the weight and then we're healthy. And I know you know that, but I want people to have, men and women, to have that sort of concept in your mind. It's like, if you're not happy with how you look or feel, get healthier. That is their focus. Forget the scale. Mm-hmm. Get healthier. Focus on having more energy. Everything else is going to come from that. Everything else. Because then you have the energy to say yes to going dancing and working out and date night and all the fun things in life, and wow, hey, look, I found my ideal weight, because you burned an extra 700 calories every day just because you weren't sitting, you were moving, moving your body through space. And that's really the life that we want to have. That is what lights me up all the time. Like that's the most fun I ever have is dancing. That was my personal goal for 2022 was life is pretty good. I used to dance a lot of salsa and just anything really, but 2 to 3 times a week be dancing. And I realized that, and I know you love this too, I realized that there's a cap to our health if we're not dancing often. Like yoga is great, but there are so many benefits from just dancing, from the oxytocin that you get if you're dancing if it's partner dancing, or all these different things, but you feel better. And then you have no, just the side effects of that are so positive. It's tremendous. You go home and you sleep so well because you have no stress, and you just wake up the next day feeling refreshed. And then there's no procrastination because you feel like you're taking care of yourself. You feel like you're happy, and you're sort of nourishing your personal side. So then of course work is just, it's like, oh, well, I can focus on this because I filled my tank up type thing, but you need energy to get there. So,
well, let's take a look at my test. I want people to have an idea of what is in a hair. Is it hair mineral tissue analysis?
Yeah.
Or am I saying HT, hair tissue mineral?
Yeah, that's right.
So I want you to have an idea of what is in these tests, you guys. And I want you to understand how these tests are read. So Barton, why don't you, the first time he looked at my test results, I hadn't really told him any of my symptoms. It's like he had a crystal ball. He's like telling me how I'm feeling. It was crazy. All right. Why don't you just kind of walk us through what you're seeing here?
Sure. So the first thing I do is I look at everything before I start making decisions, which is kind of a great concept and mental model for all of life. It's like, let's not make snap judgments. That always gets us into trouble eventually. We wouldn't bet our lives on snap judgments. So what I see here on this first part is obviously your calcium and magnesium are both elevated. We already talked about magnesium and why that's elevated. It's not because you have too much. Virtually no one has too much. It is, now you can have a ratio that is off because let's say someone's calcium is really low, which is pretty rare. One of the big things that I want people to just stop doing in almost every case is supplementing calcium. There are some rare cases, and that's why we have a calcium supplement but it has magnesium and it has boron, it has cofactors or co-elements essentially that drive absorption instead of just having it deposit in your joints and cause stiffness. So too much calcium in the body does lead to stiffness. It also impairs thyroid function. It also offsets phosphorus and drives phosphorus out of the body, which helps with metabolism. So we will see that on page 2. This part's really important. So this is an indicator of your metabolism. So as you eat more protein, which contains a lot of phosphorus, your calcium and phosphorus naturally improve. So you've probably been doing that since we talked last. And then absorbing it. It's always about, can you absorb it? So if you get nothing out of this conversation, test, don't guess. And absorption is your lead star, right? So it's not just what you're eating, it's absorbing. So stomach acid's important. So taking enzymes, taking HCl during a protein meal, not at the end, not at the beginning, things like that. Yeah. Let's
go back to the first. I'm going to read for people that are listening. I just want to read what is on page 1 of these results. If you want to go back to page 1, Barton, I just want you to know, or actually you should probably, because I don't know what all these mean. So we have calcium, magnesium. Go ahead.
Yeah. Calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium, copper, zinc, phosphorus, iron, manganese, which a lot of people have never heard of. And they think we're talking about magnesium, but manganese, which is key for brain function, blood sugar, sensitivity, all sorts of things. Chromium, selenium, cobalt, molybdenum, sulfur. And then we have our toxic elements like antimony, uranium, arsenic, beryllium, mercury, cadmium, lead, and aluminum. Aluminum is very ubiquitous. It is very common. It is pretty much everyone has it. So virtually everyone would benefit from a detox that uses a binder that has a molecular size that can bind with aluminum. So you see how specific that is? I hear it's kind of heartbreaking to hear people just do detoxes. They're just like, I'm going to do green juice, and they don't do any binders, and they don't know what they need to detox.
Right.
Which is when you hear me say that, or you hear someone say that, which I actually haven't heard anyone ever talk about detoxing a specific element and here's how and here's why, and let's test for it first and then. But that's obviously the way you want to do it, right? You don't want to do a scattershot approach. You go, I know for sure I have aluminum toxicity. I know for sure. So let's get that out.
On page 2, you guys, of this test, there's ratios. So he just read through what's being measured, the elements that are being measured. And then on page 2, there's ratios. And the ratio was really intriguing to hear people talk through the ratios, or whenever I was having my test read, to hear them talk about the ratios and what I need to do to get those ratios into balance, because the balance is the really important part for your body to function properly. So there's individual elements on the first page, and then there's ratios on the second page. All right, keep taking us through this, Barton.
Right. So if I can mention too, if you're a practitioner or a health coach, doctor, health coach, nutritionist, you can also do our course. Anyone can actually, if they just want knowledge. And that is understanding this, which really, really helps you take control of your own health. Of course, I have to say, as a disclaimer, always, this isn't medical advice. Unfortunately, I have to say that
Yes.
because medical advice would be taking medication, which will add to the toxicity load in your body in every case, really.
Yeah.
So have someone, go through that is certified or is incredibly knowledgeable in this test specifically, not just generally, but in this test specifically. So
yeah, it's unique expertise. Tell them about Misty that's in this test. What do you see? Tie this to how I'm feeling.
Yeah. And as luckily you've been working on this for a while now, so you're already feeling better. Like you were talking about at the beginning, brain function, just a smoothness of thinking, which makes us feel happier. Like I always tell people that depression is largely a symptom of mitochondrial insufficiency. So your body just doesn't have the nutrients so therefore your cells aren't happy, so your organs aren't happy. And depression is like a headache, really, it's like, or a migraine. I know it's life-changingly bad and people commit suicide all the time because of it, because they don't feel like they have options. But this is important to understand. When you see it from this lens, you go, oh, so it's my body letting me know that something's wrong. And I don't know how to listen to the signals, and I don't know what to do about it.
That's right.
But if I did, I could somehow reverse it, because I didn't always feel this way, did I? No, I didn't. I wasn't born feeling terrible. But drinking, staying up late, smoking, doing drugs, all sorts of things like this, like working out too hard, stressing a lot, work, financial stress, giving birth, any of these things. And many of us have done more than one of these things quite a bit for years on end. That leads to lower levels of these nutrients. So then, of course, your body's not going to have that pizzazz, that charge, that light, all that life force. So what we're seeing here, though, in Misty's case specifically, if we go back, probably a month ago, on what we're looking at was, she could improve metabolism function by lowering calcium, increasing phosphorus. One that was really good was, and I love this because it gives us something to work on, right? It's very tangible. The adrenal function was, pretty decent from that perspective, at least. But then from a sodium to magnesium perspective, she needed more sodium and she needed a lot more B6, and she needed to continue taking her magnesium, and that would optimize adrenal function. Now, from a thyroid function, calcium and potassium, iodine is something that you most likely needed to boost thyroid function. Zinc and copper was looking fairly balanced. So that, wasn't too concerning. And, of course, was bringing down calcium like we talked about earlier, and iron to copper looking pretty good. But I would say, and then looking at toxic ratios, selenium to mercury was a little low. So you could bring that up, and that's also going to help selenium is also going to help thyroid function. So, and it's going to help the conversion of inactive to active hormone. So like you talked about converting, that's a key one. Selenium can also be anti-aging, but most people don't absorb it very well. So that's, again, another reason why you want to be taking products that absorb really well.
I love it. We also found aluminum, another metal for me to be detoxing.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Aluminum was there, and it's there for a lot of people. It's really, really easy to have. But yeah, that's like the overarching thing, without explaining so much that it overwhelms people. Yeah. I think that's a really good place to stop and just say, hopefully this all makes sense to people. I feel like we laid it out really logically. I think those are some great questions. So I would say from my perspective, I have noticed, first of all, my body is releasing weight, and I've had a really challenging time releasing and having it come right back. Right. So I feel like my metabolism is definitely functioning better, thankfully, much more stable. My brain for sure is functioning better, and I'm actually starting to back off. I've been taking, for adrenal support, I've been taking Dr. Wilson's adrenal rebuilder or adrenal builder. I can't remember exactly, or maybe it's just adrenal support, has been super helpful if women have low adrenal function. If you've done a salivary cortisol, for example, and you see that you have low adrenal function in the morning or midday, it's a great supplement. It's been really helpful to me, but I'm starting to feel like it's too much, right? I need to back off of it. And that makes me feel really, really excited because I've had to be so propped up for so long to feel good. Thankfully, there are a lot of things that can help us feel good and kind of make up for the deficiencies that we're experiencing. But, I think what we all want is to deeply heal, right? We all want the reward of finally my body is doing what it's supposed to be doing and doesn't need to be propped up so much. So I've seen an improvement for sure in my adrenal function, and I'm about to do another test. So we'll see what happens on that test. But if you guys go to upgradedformulas.com, you can actually order a hair mineral or hair tissue mineral analysis test, and you can book a consult with someone on Barton's team to review your results with you and help you know exactly what to do. So, and then I think, what is it, Barton? Every 90 days, we should repeat the test and see how we're doing, maybe tweak what we're taking based on our test results. So I'm at about a couple of weeks shy of the 90-day mark. So I'll be repeating the test pretty soon myself. But this has been really, really helpful information for me. I'm super excited, Barton, that we got to do this interview. You've been traveling. I wanted to do this interview. This probably would have been one of the very first episodes for Rosie Radio, because I'm so excited about it. And I think it's so foundational to healing the body, which we're all going for optimal, right? So you've been gallivanting around the world. I'm glad you finally landed. And we're going to get this information out to you all. So go to healingrosie.com, check the show notes. We will have links to all of the stuff we've been talking about during this interview. And go over to upgradedformulas.com. And Barton, you built something really special over there that makes it easy for people. I just love how straightforward and easy it was to start working on this. So really appreciate it. Any final thoughts before we sign off here? Thank you so much. Well, that was beautifully said. And it's just sort of my love letter to the world. Yeah. It's exactly what I needed. And I was not available. Like the testing was available, but then it was really hard to find consultations. And then of course the supplements just didn't really work, because when you absorb like 25% on average or less of a supplement, your deficiencies stay, so then your symptoms stay, the weight stays, the brain fog stays, the waking up multiple times in the middle of the night and going to the bathroom many times during the day stays, the migraines, the PMS symptoms stay, the later in life, just whatever stage you're in, there's just different issues that you don't have to have. And it's just your body speaking a language to you that most of us just don't understand. And it's, it's the body's always talking. It's just a matter of, are we listening, and do we know what to do about it? And do we have the right tool?
That's right. So, the body talks and we don't necessarily know what to do. So it's really empowering to have conversations like this and help people understand what they can do to start supporting the body and having what it needs so that it can do what it wants to do. The body wants to heal itself, right? It needs the building blocks to be able to do that. So this was awesome. Thank you so much, Barton, for spending time with us today. Thanks everyone for tuning in.
Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening.
All right. We'll see y'all soon. That's it for this week's episode. Thank you for listening. I hope you're feeling more empowered to overcome your flabby, foggy, and fatigued, and to reclaim your life. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to hit that subscribe button right now so you don't miss any of our episodes. We have some awesome shows coming right up. I love reading your reviews and comments too. They inspire me and encourage other Rosies to hang out with us and learn all these amazing strategies for healing and living our best lives. Till next time, sister. Bye.